To help compare the two companies of Coke and Pepsi, we use the DuPont analysis. This analysis is used in identifying strengths and weaknesses while using the return on equity. For the DuPont analysis, we used a 5-part analysis. This 5-part analysis includes the return on equity, EBIT margin, asset turnover, and leverage. A good range for return on equity is being between the ranges of 15 and 20%. For Coke, the past 3 years, from 2016 to 2018, their range for return on equity is 28 to 38%. This is a little on the high end. Their return on equity is considered to be strong because of their minimum is higher with a narrow range. As for Pepsi, they range from 57% to 86%. They're also on the high end for return on equity. Even with a higher return on equity, they're not as strong as Coke. Pepsi range is a lot larger compared to Coke, which is what makes them weaker. When it comes to EBIT margin, Coke takes the win. With Coke having the stronger profit margin, it is most likely due to their big brand name. Coke has the biggest brand name in the soft drink industry. Since they have this strong brand name, they are able to charge a premium on their products. In return, this leads them to have a stronger profit margin. Pepsi also has a strong EBIT margin, but not as strong as Coke. Even though they may not be as strong, they are at a steady increase. Since Coke has a stronger profit margin compared to Pepsi, this is another strength for Coke and a weakness for Pepsi. Asset turnover ratios can differ depending on the industry you're looking into. When looking at the asset turnover numbers, the ratios seem to be less than 1 for Coke and Pepsi. This is typical to see these ratios be less than 1 in the soft drink industry. This is mainly due to their large asset bases. Surprisingly, Pepsi has a higher asset turnover and is consistent. That helps make up for their low profit margin. This area would be considered a weakness for Coke and a strength for Pepsi. For leverage, Coke seems to have the least amount of leverage. Because they have the least amount of leverage, this makes them a more stable company. Pepsi has a higher leverage. Since they have a higher amount of leverage, they're not as stable, and if an economic downturn were to happen, they would be affected. For Coke having the least amount of leverage, this is a strength to them and a weakness to Pepsi. Pepsi and Coke have many variations that set them apart from each other. Even though Coke is the leading brand and Pepsi is right behind them, Pepsi does have some brand power and could charge a premium. These two companies essentially offer the same products. Using the DuPont analysis, you can see the different strategies along with being able to see the strengths and weaknesses. Pepsi's strategy that they implement still enables them to sell a decent amount, which results in a good asset turnover. The premium that Coke offers seems to be their competitive advantage. The management team seems to be conservative and focus on their brand. For the long term, Coke is the best option when compared to Pepsi. For the short term, Pepsi would be a better option compared to Coke.